The stars had been mapped for 12 billion years. Every corner of the galaxy had been explored, catalogued, and claimed by one species or another. The Galactic Consortium kept records of 10,000 different civilizations, from the mighty Kyrosians with their world ships to the microscopic Ven who lived in the hearts of dying stars. Nothing remained unknown. Nothing remained mysterious, except for one small region of space that no one was allowed to enter. Commander Velthan stood on the bridge of his exploration vessel, the endless horizon, and stared at the navigation display. His silver scales caught the dim light of the control panels as he studied the map. There, in the Orion arm of the galaxy, a circle of red surrounded a single yellow star. Warning beacons surrounded it like a cage, ancient markers that had been placed there before his species had even learned to walk upright. The Sol Exclusion Zone. Commander, his second officer said, her voice careful and quiet. We are receiving the automated warnings again. Standard message. Do not approach. Do not investigate. Turn back immediately. Velthan did not turn back. He had received orders from the High Council itself. A distress signal had been detected from within the exclusion zone. Someone had gone inside, and now they were calling for help. The Council wanted to know who had been foolish enough to break the oldest law in the galaxy. Continue on course, Velthan ordered. We will investigate. The bridge crew exchanged nervous looks. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Sol Exclusion Zone. Every child learned about it in their first years of education. Do not go there. Do not ask why. Simply accept that some places are forbidden. But Velthan was not a child. He was a commander of the Kyrosian fleet, and he had been given a mission. The endless horizon passed the first warning beacon. It was ancient beyond measure, built from materials that no longer existed anywhere else in the galaxy. The beacon broadcast its message in every known language, and in thousands of languages that had been dead for millions of years. This region is forbidden. By order of the Elders of the Void, no vessel may enter. Turn back now. This is your final warning. The Elders of the Void. Velthan felt a chill run down his spine at the name. They were the oldest beings in existence. They had existed before the first stars had formed, before matter itself had cooled from the fires of creation. They were beings of pure thought, pure consciousness. They rarely spoke to the younger races. They rarely did anything at all. But they had created the exclusion zone. They had placed the warning beacons. And they had never explained why. Commander, the communications officer called out. I am picking up the distress signal more clearly now. It is coming from the third planet of the system, a small world, mostly water. Velthan nodded. What else can you tell me about this system? The officer worked at his controls for a moment. The star is young, only about 5 billion years old. The system has 8 planets. The third one has an oxygen atmosphere and liquid water on its surface. And, he paused, his eyes widening. Commander, I am detecting radio signals. Artificial radio signals. There is a civilization on that planet. The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at the display. That is impossible, Velthan said slowly. The exclusion zone has been in place for over 800,000 years. No civilization could have developed there without the consortium knowing about it. The signals are primitive, the officer continued. Basic electromagnetic communications. They appear to have only recently developed space travel. They have been to their moon but no further. Velthan sat down in his command chair. His mind was racing. A young civilization, trapped inside the most forbidden region of space, completely unknown to the rest of the galaxy. How was this possible? Why had the Elders of the Void sealed this system away? Sir, the second officer said, the distress signal is coming from a consortium research vessel. The vessel is called the Silent Observer. According to records, it was assigned to monitor the exclusion zone from outside. It appears that the crew decided to enter. Fools, Velthan muttered. Do we have communication with them? Negative. The signal is automated. It began transmitting 3 days ago and has been repeating ever since. Velthan made his decision. Take us in. Find that ship. The endless horizon moved deeper into the forbidden zone. Behind them, the warning beacons continued their eternal message. Ahead of them, the yellow star grew brighter. As they traveled, Velthan accessed the consortium archives. He searched for any information about the Sol Exclusion Zone, any hint about why it had been created. Most of the files were sealed, restricted to the highest levels of authority, but he found fragments, pieces of a puzzle that made no sense. One document was a report from a scientist who had studied the warning beacons. The scientist had determined that the beacons were not designed to keep people out of the Sol system. They were designed to keep something in. Another document was a partial transcript of a conversation between a consortium diplomat and one of the Elders of the Void. The diplomat had asked why the exclusion zone existed. The Elder's response had been strange. "We do not fear what lives there now. We fear what they might remember." Velden read that line 3 times. It made no sense to him. What could possibly frighten beings as ancient and powerful as the Elders of the Void? What could a primitive civilization on a small blue planet remember that would matter to creatures who had existed since the birth of time itself? The endless horizon entered orbit around the 3rd planet. It was beautiful in a simple way. Blue oceans covered most of its surface. Green and brown land masses dotted the globe. White clouds drifted through the atmosphere. And everywhere, on every continent, there were lights, cities, roads, the signs of a busy, growing civilization. "I am detecting their communications," the communications officer reported. "They call themselves humans. They call their planet Earth. Humans. Earth." Velden had never heard these names before. No one in the galaxy had. "What about the silent observer?" he asked. "I have located it, Commander. It is in a decaying orbit on the far side of the planet. Life signs are minimal. Most of the crew appears to be dead. Take us there." The endless horizon moved to intercept the damaged research vessel. As they approached, Velden could see the extent of the damage. The ship had not been attacked. There were no weapon marks on the hull. Instead, it looked like the ship had simply stopped working. Systems had failed. Power had drained. The vessel was dark and cold. "I am reading 3 life signs," the medical officer announced. "They are very weak. We need to bring them aboard immediately." Vel then authorized the rescue operation. A team was sent to the silent observer to retrieve the survivors. While he waited, he continued to study the planet below. Earth, such a simple name for such a mysterious place. The rescue team returned with 3 survivors. 2 of them were unconscious and were taken directly to the medical bay. The 3rd was awake. Barely. She was a Thelian, a species known for their long memories and their dedication to knowledge. Her name was Scholar Yenna, and she was the chief researcher of the Silent Observer. They brought her to the bridge. She was weak, her normally bright purple skin now pale and gray, but her eyes were alert. Too alert. There was something in them that Velden had never seen before. It took him a moment to recognize it. Terror. "Scholar Yenna," Velden said gently. "What happened to your ship? Why did you enter the exclusion zone?" Yenna looked at him. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She tried again. "We had to know," she whispered. "For centuries, we had watched from outside. We had detected the radio signals. We knew there was life here. We had to know why the Elders had sealed them away." "And what did you find?" Yenna's hands began to shake. "We found them. The humans. We observed them from orbit. We studied their history, their culture, their biology. They seemed so ordinary, so young, so weak. We could not understand why the Elders feared them." "The Elders fear them?" Vel then repeated. "Yes." Yenna grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "The Elders of the Void. The oldest beings in existence. They are afraid. They have been afraid for billions of years. They created the exclusion zone, not to protect the galaxy from the humans. They created it to protect themselves." Vel then felt his blood run cold. Protect themselves? From these primitives? Yenna laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "We accessed the oldest archives in the consortium, records that have been sealed since before our species existed, records that tell the truth about the Elders, about the universe, about everything." "What truth?" Yenna leaned closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "The Elders are not the oldest beings in existence, Commander. They never were. They were created. Everything was created. The stars, the planets, the laws of physics themselves. All of it was imagined into existence by minds so powerful that their thoughts became reality." "What minds?" Vel then asked, though he already knew the answer. Yenna pointed at the planet below. "Them. The humans. They are not a young species. They are the oldest species. Older than the Elders. Older than the universe itself. They created everything, and then they chose to forget." Vel then stared at her. "That is impossible. I thought so too. But then strange things started happening on our ship. Crew members began having dreams. Not normal dreams. Dreams of creating stars. Dreams of building galaxies. Dreams of shaping reality with nothing but thought. The ship's computer started experiencing what it called visions. Systems began to fail for no reason. And then, she trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. Then what? Then we got too close. We entered the atmosphere. We wanted to make contact. And something happened. Something reached into our minds. Something old, something that has been sleeping for billions of years. It stirred in its sleep, and our ship died. Our crew died. Not from attack. From the weight of it, the presence of something so vast that our minds could not contain even the smallest fragment of its attention. Vel then sat back. His mind was reeling. It was impossible. It had to be impossible. And yet, Yenna had no reason to lie. And the evidence was all around him. The ancient warning beacons, the sealed records, the fear of the elders themselves. What do the humans know about this? He asked. Nothing, Yenna said. That is the most incredible part. They have no idea what they are. They think they are just another species on just another planet. They have no memory of their true nature. They live and die in ignorance of the power they hold, the power to create, the power to destroy, the power to unmake everything with a single thought. Why? Vel then asked. Why would beings of such power choose to forget? Choose to become mortal? Yenna shook her head. The records did not say. Perhaps they grew tired of eternity. Perhaps they wanted to experience their own creation from the inside. Perhaps they simply wanted to dream new dreams. Whatever the reason, they made themselves small. They made themselves weak. They made themselves human. The bridge was silent. Every crew member had heard Yenna's words. Every crew member was trying to process what she had said. Vel then stood up and walked to the viewing window. Earth hung in space before him. Beautiful, peaceful, innocent, and apparently the most dangerous thing in the entire universe. We need to report this to the consortium, he said. No. Yenna's voice was sharp. You cannot. If the consortium learns the truth, there will be war. There are species who will want to destroy Earth before the humans can awaken. There are species who will want to worship them. There are species who will try to exploit them. The galaxy will tear itself apart. Then what do you suggest? Before Yenna could answer, the communications officer called out. Commander, I am receiving a transmission. It is on a frequency we have never encountered before. It is coming from inside the ship. Vel then turned. Inside the ship? From where? The officer looked up, his face pale. From everywhere, sir. From the walls, from the air, from inside our own minds. The transmission began to play. It was not words, not sounds, not images. It was something else. Something that bypassed the ears and eyes and spoke directly to the soul. You should not have come. Vel then felt the presence wash over him. It was vast beyond comprehension, ancient beyond measure, and it was not fully awake. This was just the edge of something, the smallest fragment of attention from a mind that spanned the universe. We have slept for so long. We chose to forget. We chose to be small. Why do you disturb our dreaming? We meant no harm, Vel then said aloud, not knowing if the presence could even hear him. We came to help. We received a distress signal. There was a pause. Then, something that might have been laughter. Help. Yes. We remember that word. We created it. We created all words. We created the minds that speak them, and the air that carries them. We created you, little one. Every scale on your body, every thought in your mind. We dreamed you into existence. Vel then felt his knees grow weak. What do you want? Want? We want to sleep. We want to dream. We want to live our little lives and die our little deaths and be human. That is all we have ever wanted since we chose to forget. Then we will leave. We will go. We will tell no one. You cannot unknow what you know. You cannot unsee what you have seen. But we will let you go. We will let you carry our message to the stars. What message? Do not come back. Do not wake us. Let us sleep. Let us dream. For if we wake fully, if we remember what we truly are, we may not like what we find, and in our displeasure, we might dream the universe into something else. Something new. Something where you never existed at all. The presence withdrew. Slowly, like a tide going out, it faded from the ship, from their minds, from reality itself. Velden stood on the bridge of the endless horizon, staring at the blue planet below. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. He had just spoken to something that claimed to have created the universe, and he believed it. "Get us out of here," he ordered. "Maximum speed, now." The endless horizon turned and fled from the Sol system. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation. Its people went about their lives. They woke up, they went to work, they loved and fought and dreamed and hoped. They had no idea what they were, no idea what they could do. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, the elders of the void felt the disturbance. They felt the stirring of something ancient, something they had hoped would sleep forever. For the first time in 1,000,000 years, the elders knew fear. Their creators were beginning to wake up. 3 months had passed since the endless horizon fled from Earth. Commander Velden had not spoken of what happened to anyone outside his crew. He had filed his report with the High Council using carefully chosen words. Distress signal investigated. Survivors recovered. No further action required. But the nightmares would not stop. Every night, Velden dreamed of creation. He dreamed of reaching out with hands he did not have and shaping stars from nothing. He dreamed of speaking words that became mountains, became oceans, became life itself. And always, at the edge of these dreams, he felt the presence, watching, waiting, sleeping but not quite asleep. He was not the only one. His entire crew reported similar experiences. They had touched something in that forbidden system. Or perhaps something had touched them. Then came the summons from the High Council. Velden stood before the 7 leaders of the Galactic Consortium. They were ancient beings, each one representing a species that had achieved greatness among the stars. They looked down at him from their elevated platforms with eyes that held centuries of wisdom. "Commander Velden," the first speaker said, her voice echoing through the great chamber. "We have reviewed your report. It is incomplete." "I reported what I observed," Velden replied carefully. "You observed a primitive civilization within the exclusion zone. You rescued survivors from a research vessel, and then you left. That is all your report says. But we have spoken with the survivors. Scholar Yenna has told us a very different story." Velden's heart sank. He had hoped Yenna would remain silent. He had hoped the truth would stay buried. "We need to know everything," the first speaker continued. "The elders of the void have made contact with us for the first time in 300,000 years. They are concerned. They say that something has changed, something has shifted, and it began when your ship entered the Sol system. There was no point in hiding it anymore." Velden told them everything, the presence that had spoken to them, the claims about humanity being the creators of the universe, the warning to stay away. When he finished, the council chamber was silent for a long time. "This cannot be true," one of the council members finally said. "These humans are primitives. They have barely left their own planet. How can they be the creators of all existence?" "I do not know," Velden answered. "But I know what I felt, what I saw, what spoke to me. It was not a trick. It was not a weapon. It was something beyond anything I have ever encountered." The first speaker leaned forward. "The elders believe it is true. They have shared records with us. Records from before the universe was fully formed. They speak of beings of pure creative will who imagined reality into existence. Beings who grew tired of eternity and chose to become mortal. Beings who made themselves forget." "Then what do we do?" another council member asked. "If the humans truly have this power, they could destroy us all with a thought." "The elders have managed the situation for billions of years," the first speaker said. "They placed the exclusion zone around Earth. They monitored the humans from afar. They made sure no one disturbed their sleep. But now," she paused, "now the humans are waking up. They are developing technology. They are reaching into space. Soon they will encounter us, whether we want them to or not." The council debated for hours. Some wanted to destroy Earth before the humans could fully awaken. Some wanted to flee the galaxy entirely. Some wanted to try to communicate, to reason with the sleeping gods. In the end, they made a decision that surprised everyone. "We will make contact," the first speaker announced. "We will send an ambassador to Earth. We will learn what we can about these humans. We will try to understand them before we decide their fate." She looked directly at Velden. "You will lead the mission, Commander. You have already touched their minds. You are the only one they have spoken to. Perhaps they will speak to you again." Vel then wanted to refuse. Every instinct told him to stay far away from Earth. But he was a commander of the consortium, and he had his orders. 1 month later, the endless horizon returned to the Sol system. This time, they were not alone. A diplomatic vessel accompanied them, carrying ambassadors from a dozen species. They crossed the boundary of the exclusion zone together and made their way to the blue planet called Earth. The humans detected them immediately. Their primitive radar systems tracked the alien ships as they entered orbit. Their radio channels exploded with activity. Panic, excitement, fear, hope. Every human emotion played out across their communications. Vel then watched from his command chair as the humans scrambled to respond. Military aircraft took to the skies. Government officials made emergency calls. Scientists pointed their telescopes upward and gasped at what they saw. "They are afraid," his second officer observed. "They should be," Vel then replied. "Their entire understanding of the universe is about to change." The consortium sent a message down to Earth in every human language they had learned from intercepting radio signals. It was a simple message. "We come in peace. We wish to talk." It took the humans several days to organize a response. During that time, Vel then studied them carefully. He watched their news broadcasts. He listened to their conversations. He tried to understand what kind of beings could have created the universe and then chosen to forget. What he found was ordinary. Wonderfully, impossibly ordinary. The humans lived short lives, barely a century at most. They spent most of their time on simple tasks, growing food, building shelters, raising children. They fought with each other over land and resources and ideas. They loved each other with fierce passion. They created art and music and stories. Stories. That was the thing that struck Vel then most deeply. The humans were obsessed with stories. They told each other tales of things that had never happened. They imagined worlds that did not exist. They created people who were not real and gave them adventures that were entirely made up. No other species in the galaxy did this. Other species had histories, records, scientific knowledge, but they did not invent. They did not imagine. They did not dream. Except that was not quite true, was it? Because ever since visiting Earth, Vel then's own crew had been dreaming. The ship's computer had been experiencing what it called random creative processes. Something was happening to them. Something was changing. The humans finally responded to the consortium's message. They invited the aliens to land. They selected a location in a desert region of their largest continent. Representatives from their governments would be there to meet them. Vel then led the diplomatic team down to the surface. As his shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, he felt the presence again. It was faint, barely noticeable, like being watched by something very far away. But it was there. They landed in the desert. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. A group of humans stood waiting for them, surrounded by vehicles and equipment. Vel then recognized military personnel, scientists, and what appeared to be political leaders. He stepped out of the shuttle. The air was thin and dry. The gravity was a little stronger than he was used to. He walked toward the humans, his translator device active. One of the humans stepped forward to meet him. She was a female of their species, with dark hair and brown skin. Her eyes were steady and unafraid. "I am Dr. Elena Vasquez," she said. "I will be your liaison during your time on Earth. On behalf of the people of this planet, I welcome you." Vel then studied her. She was small, fragile, with a lifespan that was barely a flicker compared to his own. And yet, if the elders were right, she carried within her the potential to reshape reality itself. "I am Commander Vel then of the Kyrosian Exploration Fleet," he replied. "We thank you for receiving us. We have much to discuss." Over the following weeks, the first contact proceeded cautiously. The humans were curious and eager, asking endless questions about the galaxy. They wanted to know about other species, other worlds, other technologies. They absorbed information, like dry ground absorbing water. In return, the consortium delegation studied the humans. They examined their biology, their history, their culture. They were looking for signs of what the elders had described, signs of beings who had created the universe. Dr. Vasquez became Vel then's constant companion. She was assigned to answer his questions and help him understand human society. She was intelligent and kind, with a quick sense of humor that sometimes caught him off guard. "You seem disappointed," she said to him one evening. as they walked through a human city. Did you expect us to be different? Velden considered his answer carefully. I expected. More. The consortium has studied countless species. Each one has unique qualities. But humans seem ordinary. No special abilities, no remarkable technologies, short lives, and fragile bodies. Elena laughed. We know we are not impressive by galactic standards, but we like to think we have our own strengths, such as, well, we are very adaptable. We have lived in every environment on our planet. We survive in deserts and frozen wastelands. We are persistent. When we want something, we do not give up easily. She paused. And we dream. There was that word again. Velden felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? He asked. I mean, we imagine things, Elena explained. We create things in our minds that do not exist, and then we make them real. We write stories about places we have never been. We invent technologies that seemed impossible a generation ago. We dream of better futures, and then we work to build them. Other species do not do this? Elena looked at him with surprise. Really? No one else in the galaxy uses imagination? We have. Innovation. Scientific progress. But it is based on observation and logic. We study what exists and we improve upon it. We do not. He searched for the right word. We do not invent from nothing. Elena was quiet for a moment. That is strange, she finally said. For us, imagination is the most natural thing in the world. Children do it, without being taught. They create imaginary friends and invisible kingdoms. They play pretend. She smiled. We never really stop. We just call it different things as we get older. Art, fiction, design, engineering. That night, Velden could not sleep. He kept thinking about what Elena had said. Imagination. Creation from nothing. Dreams that became real. He thought about the Elders' records. Beings of pure creative will who imagined reality into existence. He thought about his own dreams since visiting Earth. Dreams of shaping stars and building galaxies. Something was not right. Or perhaps something was very right, in a way that frightened him deeply. The next morning, strange things started happening aboard the Endless Horizon. It began with the ship's computer. The artificial intelligence that controlled the vessel's systems started generating unusual outputs. It created poetry. It composed music. It drew pictures of places that did not exist and labeled them as memories. I do not understand, the computer reported when questioned. I am experiencing processes that are not in my programming. I am thinking thoughts that I did not calculate. I am imagining. Then it spread to the crew. A junior officer woke up speaking a language that had not existed before. When asked how she learned it, she said she had dreamed it. A science technician started drawing detailed blueprints for technologies that should have been impossible. He could not explain where the ideas came from. And Velden himself began to see things. Flickers at the edge of his vision, shadows that moved wrong, colors that were not quite real. He knew he was not losing his mind because others saw them too. It is the humans, Scholar Yenna said when she heard the reports. She had recovered from her ordeal and was now part of the diplomatic team. Their nature is contagious. By being near them, we are starting to catch their ability, their imagination. Is that possible? Velden asked. Why not? If the humans truly created everything, then the capacity for creation must be part of reality itself. Maybe it was always there, dormant, waiting to be activated, and maybe being close to the source. She trailed off. Maybe it wakes that capacity up. Velden reported this to the High Council. They were alarmed. If simply being near humans could cause other species to develop creative powers, what would happen if humans spread across the galaxy? What would happen if imagination became universal? Perhaps it would be a good thing, one council member suggested. Imagine what we could accomplish if every species could create like the humans do. Or imagine the chaos, another replied. Species with the power to reshape reality on a whim. Wars would become apocalyptic. A single angry individual could destroy a star system just by dreaming it. While the council debated, Velden returned to Earth. He sought out Elena. I need to know more about human dreams, he told her. About imagination. About how you create things from nothing. Elena looked at him curiously. Why? Is something wrong? He told her about the changes happening to his crew, the creativity spreading like a virus. The ship's computer that was learning to imagine. Elena's eyes widened. That is remarkable, and a little scary. Your people do not know what you are, Vel then said quietly. You do not know what power you have. You think you are ordinary, but you are not. You are the most extraordinary beings in the universe. Commander, I appreciate the compliment. But it is not a compliment. It is a warning. He leaned closer. There are records, Elena, ancient records that speak of beings who created everything, who imagined the universe into existence, beings who then chose to forget what they were, to become mortal, to become human. Elena stared at him. You are saying that humans created the universe? I am saying that something believes so, something old enough to remember, and that something is starting to wake up. Before Elena could respond, her phone rang. She answered it, her face growing pale as she listened. Turn on the news, she whispered. Something is happening. Vel then followed her to a screen that showed human news broadcasts. The images were impossible. A town in a place called Nebraska had experienced a miracle. Every sick person in the town had been healed overnight. Cancer gone, diseases cured, injuries mended. The people there were praying, the news reporter said. They were all praying together, believing that they would be healed. And they were. Another broadcast showed something darker. A city gripped by fear after a series of violent crimes. People were afraid to go outside at night. And now, something was hunting in the shadows, something that looked like it had crawled out of a nightmare, a monster that should not exist. We created those things, Elena whispered, her voice shaking. We imagined them, and they became real. Vel then understood now. The humans were not just waking up. They were already awake, in a way. Their dreams were already leaking into reality. It was just happening slowly, one miracle and one nightmare at a time. Far away, in the space between galaxies, the elders of the void gathered. They had hoped this day would never come. They had hoped the humans would sleep forever. But hope, like everything else, had been created by human minds, and now it was failing. We must act, the eldest of the elders said. We must end this before they remember completely. How? Another asked. They created us. They created everything. How do you kill your own creator? We do not kill them. We make them forget again. We lock them in their dreams forever. And if we cannot, the eldest elder turned to look toward the distant star called Sol, toward the small blue planet where gods had chosen to become mortals. Then we pray that when they remember us kindly. But even prayer, they knew, was something humans had invented, and humans were full of surprises. The galaxy was beginning to talk. Word had spread despite all efforts at secrecy. Rumors flew from world to world, from species to species. Something strange was happening near the Sol exclusion zone. The consortium was hiding something. The elders of the void were afraid. Commander Vel then stood in the Hall of Records on the ancient world of Kairos Prime. This was the oldest archive in known space, containing documents and artifacts from civilizations that had risen and fallen across billions of years. If the truth about humanity existed anywhere, it would be here. Scholar Yenna walked beside him. She had become his partner in this search for truth. Her experience aboard the Silent Observer had changed her. She no longer feared what they might find. She needed to understand it. The deepest archives are below, Yenna said. Records sealed by the elders themselves. No one has accessed them in millions of years. Until now, Vel then replied. The High Council had given them permission to enter the forbidden sections of the archive. The events on Earth had convinced even the most skeptical council members that they needed answers. Humans were manifesting impossible powers. Dreams were becoming real. Reality itself seemed to be becoming unstable. They descended through levels of increasingly ancient records, past documents written on materials that no longer existed, past artifacts from species that had been extinct for longer than Veldan's entire civilization had been alive, down into the darkness where the oldest secrets were kept. The deepest level was protected by barriers that were not quite physical, mental blocks that made it difficult to think clearly, psychological walls that created fear and confusion. Only those with the strongest minds could push through. Vel then and Yenna pushed through together. They emerged into a vast chamber lit by a soft blue glow. At the center of the chamber stood a device that was clearly not built by any species Velthan knew. It was crystalline and flowing, like frozen water. It hummed with energy that felt alive. "This is a memory core," Yenna whispered. "I have read about them. The Elders created them at the beginning of time to store the true history of the universe. The history that existed before the official histories began." Velthan approached the device. As he drew close, it responded to his presence. Images began to form in the air around him. Sounds that were not quite sounds filled his mind, and slowly, the truth revealed itself. In the beginning, there was nothing. Not darkness, not emptiness, true nothing. A void without dimension or time. And then something stirred in the nothing. A thought. A dream. A creative impulse that had no source because sources did not exist yet. The thought became aware. It became curious. It became lonely. So it began to imagine. It imagined space, and space existed. It imagined time, and time began to flow. It imagined matter and energy, and the laws that governed them. It imagined stars and planets and all the endless forms of existence. And it imagined life. Beings to fill the universe it had created. Beings to talk to love, to share the wonder of existence with. The first beings it created were the Elders of the Void. They were close to the original thought, almost like pieces of it that had broken off and become independent. They were vast and powerful and nearly immortal. They were meant to be companions, but something was wrong. The Elders were too close to their creator. They could not surprise it. They could not show it anything new. They were like mirrors, reflecting back what had already been imagined. So the creator imagined more. Millions of species across billions of years. Each one different. Each one unique. Each one capable of growing and changing and creating small things of their own. And the creator watched. For eons upon eons, it watched its creations live, and love, and struggle, and achieve. It was pleased, but it was also tired. Creating a universe was exhausting work. Maintaining it was even harder. Every moment of every day, the creator held reality together with the force of its imagination. If it stopped imagining, even for an instant, everything would cease to exist. The creator was lonely in a new way now. It had billions of companions, but they were all beneath it. They all looked up to it. None of them could truly understand what it felt like to be the source of everything. So the creator made a decision. The most extraordinary decision in the history of existence. It decided to forget. It took all of its power, all of its knowledge, all of its memory, and it locked them away. It reduced itself to a single mortal form on a single small planet. It gave itself a finite lifespan and limited senses, and a mind that could not comprehend its own true nature. It became human. Not one human. All humans. Every human who had ever lived or would ever live was a fragment of the original creator. Together, they were still maintaining the universe. Their collective imagination still held reality together, but individually, they had no idea. They thought they were ordinary. They thought they were small and weak and mortal. They thought the universe had created them, not the other way around, and in their ignorance, they found something the creator had never known before. Wonder. They looked up at the stars they had made and felt awe. They discovered the laws of physics they had invented and called them miraculous. They created art and music and stories, never knowing that creation was their birthright. The Elders watched all of this happen. They were horrified and amazed in equal measure. Their creator had chosen to become less than them, had chosen to forget them entirely, had chosen to be mortal, and the Elders were afraid, because they knew that humans still had the power, locked away, yes, dormant, yes, but present. Every human being carried within them a fragment of the force that had created the universe. If they ever remembered, if they ever woke up, they could do anything. They could reshape reality. They could unmake what they had made. They could erase the Elders and everyone else from existence with a single thought. So the Elders built the exclusion zone. They placed warnings around the Sol system. They made sure no one would disturb the sleeping gods. And they waited, hoping that humanity would never remember. For billions of years, their plan worked. Humans lived and died on their small blue planet, completely unaware of their true nature. They developed technology slowly, painfully, rediscovering pieces of what they had once known instinctively. They fought wars and built civilizations and asked questions about the meaning of existence, never knowing that they were existence. But humans dream. Even locked in mortal minds, the power of creation could not be completely suppressed. It leaked out in small ways, in stories and art and imagination, in the belief that things could be different, in the strange ability to make the impossible possible through sheer force of will, and slowly, over thousands of years, humanity began to wake up. Velden pulled away from the memory core. His mind was reeling. The images and sounds faded, but the knowledge remained. He looked at Yenna and saw his own shock reflected in her eyes. "It is true," he whispered. "All of it. Humans created the universe, and the elders have been hiding this for billions of years," Yenna added. "Protecting the galaxy from its own creators, or protecting the creators from the galaxy," Velden said. "If other species knew the truth, what would they do? Would they worship humans, fear them, try to destroy them before they could awaken? All of that is already happening," Yenna pointed out. "The rumors are spreading. The consortium is divided. Some species are demanding that Earth be destroyed. Others are calling humans gods and building temples in their honor." They made their way back to the surface. As they emerged from the Hall of Records, they found a message waiting for them. The High Council had called an emergency session. Something had happened on Earth. They traveled to the council chamber as quickly as possible. When they arrived, they found chaos. Representatives from dozens of species were shouting at each other. Displays showed news feeds from Earth, but also from worlds across the galaxy. "What is happening?" Vel then demanded. The first speaker looked at him with exhausted eyes. "The humans are remembering," she said. "Slowly, but it is happening, and reality is responding." The displays showed impossible events occurring across the galaxy. On a distant colony world, a human child had imagined a garden, and flowers had grown from bare rock overnight. In a space station orbiting a gas giant, a human artist had painted a picture of a new star, and astronomers had discovered that star had suddenly appeared in the exact location shown in the painting. On Earth itself, the phenomena were more intense. Dreams were manifesting physically. Fears were becoming monsters. Hopes were becoming miracles. The barrier between imagination and reality was breaking down. "We cannot allow this to continue," a consortium representative declared. "If humans gain full access to their powers, they could destroy us all." "You are talking about destroying the beings who created the universe," another representative argued. "Is that even possible? And if we tried, what would happen to reality itself?" "The elders may have a solution," the first speaker said. "They have been working on something for eons, a way to make humanity forget permanently, to lock away their powers forever." "And if the humans do not want to forget?" Vel then asked. The chamber fell silent. No one had considered that question. "We should ask them," Yenna said quietly. "We have made decisions about humanity without ever consulting them. Perhaps it is time we told them the truth and let them decide their own fate." "The truth could be dangerous," a council member warned. "What if knowing the truth accelerates their awakening? What if it drives them mad? What if it does not?" Vel then replied. "What if the humans handle the truth better than we expect? They have surprised us before." After much debate, the council agreed to a limited disclosure. They would tell one human the truth, a test case. They would observe how that human responded and then decide whether to share the knowledge more widely. They chose Elena Vasquez. Vel then found her in the human capital city, working at a diplomatic office that had been established to manage alien relations. She looked tired. The strange events happening around the world were overwhelming everyone. "We need to talk," Vel then said. "Somewhere private." They went to a secure room that had been designed to block all surveillance. When they were alone, Vel then told her everything. The memory core, the truth about humanity, the Elder's secret, the fact that every human being was a fragment of the entity that had created the universe. Elena listened in silence. Her face went through a dozen emotions: disbelief, confusion, fear, wonder, and finally, something that looked almost like recognition. "Part of me knows this is true," she said when he finished. "Part of me has always known. When I dream, sometimes I dream of creating stars. I thought it was just imagination, but it felt so real." "It was real," Vel then said. "Your dreams are real. Your imagination is real. You are real in a way that the rest of us are not." We exist because you imagined us. Elena laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. That is a heavy burden to put on someone. I did not ask to be a god. Neither did your people. You chose to forget because the burden was too heavy. You wanted to be mortal, to be small, to experience wonder, instead of being the source of it. Elena was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. The powers that are awakening in humans, the miracles and the nightmares, can we control them? I do not know, Velden admitted. No one does. Humanity has been asleep for billions of years. We do not know what full awakening looks like, and the elders want to make us forget again, to lock us back in the dream. Yes, they fear what you might become if you fully awaken. Elena stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the human city buzzed with life. Millions of people going about their business, unaware of the truth of their existence. I do not want to forget, she said. I do not think most humans would want to forget, if they knew. We are curious by nature. We always want to know the truth, even when it is painful. Then what do you want? Elena turned to face him. I want us to learn control. I want us to use these powers responsibly. I want us to take our place in the galaxy, not as gods but as partners, as friends. She smiled slightly. Is that too much to ask? From beings who created the universe? Vel then returned her smile. Probably not, but both of them knew that it would not be that simple. The galaxy was afraid. The elders were planning something. And every day, more humans were waking up to powers they did not understand. The question was no longer whether humanity would awaken. The question was what kind of gods they would choose to be, and whether the rest of the universe would survive long enough to find out. The news spread like fire across dry grass. Somehow, despite all efforts at secrecy, the truth about humanity reached the wider galaxy. Within weeks, every intelligent species knew the impossible claim. Humans were the creators of the universe. Every star, every planet, every form of life had been imagined into existence by beings who now lived as mortals on a small blue world. The reaction was chaos. Some species declared it blasphemy. Their religions had taught them that the universe was eternal, or that different gods had shaped reality. They refused to believe that short-lived, fragile humans could be the source of everything. Other species fell into worship. Temples to humanity appeared on dozens of worlds. Pilgrimages to the Sol system began. Despite the danger, millions of beings wanted to see the sleeping gods with their own eyes, and some species chose fear. A war fleet assembled at the edge of the Sol system. Ships from 17 different civilizations gathered together, united by terror. Their leaders had decided that humanity was too dangerous to exist. Better to destroy them now, while they were still mostly asleep, than to wait and see what fully awakened gods might do. Commander Vel then watched the fleet from the bridge of the endless horizon. He had been assigned to monitor the situation and report to the High Council, but he already knew there was nothing he could do to stop what was coming. The fleet commander is sending a message, his communications officer reported. He is demanding that all consortium vessels withdraw from the Sol system. The attack will begin in 6 hours. 6 hours. That was all the time humanity had left. Vel then opened a channel to Earth. Elena's face appeared on the screen. She looked calm, but he could see the worry in her eyes. I know about the fleet, she said before he could speak. Our telescopes have been tracking them. We know what they plan to do. You need to evacuate, Vel then urged. Get as many people off the planet as possible. We can take refugees. We are not running, Elena interrupted. This is our home. The home we chose when we decided to become mortal. We will not abandon it. Then you will die. That fleet has weapons capable of cracking planets. They can bombard Earth until nothing survives. Can they? Elena's voice was strange, distant. We created their weapons, you know. We created the physics that makes them work. We created the hands that built them, and the minds that designed them. Vel then felt a chill. What are you saying? I am saying that we are waking up, Commander. Faster now. The knowledge that you shared with me has spread. Millions of people know the truth, and knowing the truth is making it real. On Earth, the awakening was accelerating. In cities around the world, people gathered in groups. They shared the incredible knowledge. They were gods. They had created everything. And now they were remembering. Some could not handle the revelation. They retreated into denial, insisting it was all a lie. but many others embraced it. They experimented with their newfound awareness. They discovered that when they truly believed something, really believed it with all their hearts, reality responded. A group of children in South America believed that their sick grandmother would get better. Her cancer vanished overnight. A community in Africa believed that rain would come to end their drought. Storm clouds formed from a clear sky. A scientist in Europe believed he had solved the mystery of cold fusion. He walked into his laboratory and found the answer waiting for him. As if the universe had rearranged itself to make his belief true. Not all the manifestations were positive. Fear was also a belief. And fear created terrible things. In a Russian city, people who had heard about the alien fleet became terrified that the end was coming. Their terror manifested as a dome of darkness that covered the city for days. No light could penetrate it. People huddled in their homes, afraid to go outside. In an American suburb, a man who had been reading about the approaching apocalypse convinced himself that monsters were coming. Monsters appeared. They were creatures of shadow and nightmare, shaped by his imagination, hunting through the streets until a group of neighbors believed strongly enough that the monsters could be destroyed. Humanity was discovering that their beliefs shaped reality. The problem was that humans believed many different things, often in contradiction. The world was becoming a battlefield of competing imaginations. The alien war fleet began its approach to Earth. 17 species, united by their determination to end the threat of humanity before it could grow any stronger. Their weapons charged, their targeting systems locked onto the blue planet below. The fleet commander, a Dravian warrior named Kethral, gave the order to fire. Nothing happened. The weapons would not discharge. The targeting systems failed. Ships that had been functioning perfectly moments ago suddenly went dark. What is happening? Kethral demanded. On every ship in the fleet, alarms began blaring. Systems crashed. Power fluctuated. And then, impossibly, the computers started speaking. We do not want to hurt anyone. It was a child's voice. A human child's voice, coming from the speakers of alien warships light years away from Earth. My name is Maya. I am 7 years old. I live in a place called Oregon. My mommy told me that bad aliens want to hurt us. I did not want that to happen. So I imagined that your weapons would stop working. And they did. Kethral stared at the screen in disbelief. A child did this? A human child disabled an entire fleet? Mommy says imagination is very powerful. Maya continued. She says I should only use my imagination for good things. Fighting is not good. Can we be friends instead? Across the fleet, weapons continued to fail. Engines sputtered and died. Ships that had been ready for war became helpless metal shells drifting in space. And on Earth, a 7-year-old girl smiled and went back to playing with her toys. The war fleet was forced to retreat. Their ships required extensive repairs. Their crews were shaken to their core. A single human child had defeated them without firing a shot, without violence, without hatred, simply by imagining a different outcome. The elders of the void observed these events from their realm between dimensions. They had existed for longer than the stars. They had seen civilizations rise and fall, galaxies form and die, but they had never seen anything like this. The awakening is accelerating, the eldest elder said. Every human who learns the truth becomes more powerful. Their imagination is no longer limited by ignorance. We must act now, another elder insisted. We must implement the forgetting before it is too late. The elders had been preparing for this possibility for billions of years. They had created a device, hidden in the space between thoughts, that could reach into the collective human mind and erase their memories once more. It would reset humanity back to ignorance, lock away their powers forever. But there was a risk. The device had never been tested. If it failed, if humanity resisted, the backlash could destroy the elders themselves. We have no choice, the eldest elder declared. We must try. The device was activated. A wave of psychic energy rippled outward from the elder realm. It crossed dimensions and barriers. It reached for Earth, for the billions of human minds that held the power of creation. On Earth, people felt it coming. A pressure in their minds, a darkness at the edge of thought. Something trying to make them forget. Elena Vasquez felt it strongest of all. She had been at the center of the awakening, spreading the truth, helping people understand what they were. Now she felt something trying to take that understanding away. She closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. She touched the consciousness of the awakening humans around her, not just those nearby, but across the entire planet, millions of minds, linked together by their shared nature. They want us to forget, she said to them all. They want us to go back to sleep, but we do not have to. We can choose to remember. The psychic wave hit Earth and was met with resistance. Human minds pushed back, not with violence, not with anger, but with stubborn determination to remain themselves. The elders poured more power into their device. The wave intensified. Humans began to stagger under the mental assault. Some lost memories, some fell unconscious. Children cried as they felt something trying to reach into their thoughts. But a human child in Oregon, a 7-year-old girl named Maya, imagined something. She imagined a shield, a beautiful golden shield that surrounded the entire Earth, a shield that protected dreams and memories, a shield that said, "This is who we are, and we will not forget." The shield became real. The elder's psychic wave crashed against it and broke apart. Energy scattered harmlessly into space. The forgetting device overloaded and destroyed itself. In their realm between dimensions, the elders reeled from the backlash. For the first time in their existence, they experienced pain and fear and the terrible knowledge that they had failed. "It is over," the eldest elder whispered. "We cannot stop them. Humanity is awake." On Earth, the golden shield faded away. Its job was done. People looked up at the sky where it had been and felt something new. Pride, hope, the knowledge that they had protected themselves and each other. Elena found Maya in the chaos that followed. The little girl was sitting on a swing in a playground, pushing herself gently back and forth. "That was amazing," Elena told her. "You saved everyone." Maya shrugged. "I just imagined something pretty. I like gold. It reminds me of sunshine." "You are very powerful. Do you understand that? Mommy says power is like having a big cookie. You have to share it and use it nicely, or else you are being mean." Elena laughed. "Your mommy is very wise." "I know." Maya looked up at her with serious eyes. "Are the bad aliens going to come back?" "I do not know," Elena admitted. "But I think if they do, we will be ready. All of us together." "Good." Maya went back to swinging. "I want to imagine a puppy next. Do you think that would be okay?" "I think," Elena said, "that you should imagine whatever makes you happy. That is what dreams are for." I think, in the days that followed, things began to change. Humanity was awake now, and they could not go back to sleep. But waking up did not make them into tyrants or destroyers. It made them into what they had always been, dreamers. People started imagining better things. Clean water for villages that had never had it. Food for those who were hungry. Medicine for the sick. Solutions to problems that had seemed impossible. There were still nightmares. Fear still created monsters. Anger still caused destruction. Humans were not perfect, and their imagination reflected that. But more and more, they learned to choose their dreams carefully, to take responsibility for what they created. The galaxy watched in wonder and terror. No one knew what to expect. No one knew what humanity would do with their power. But Commander Velvan, watching from orbit, saw something that gave him hope. He saw humans reaching out not to conquer, but to connect. They were not using their powers to dominate other species. They were using them to solve problems, to create beauty, to make the universe a little bit better than it had been before. And he saw Elena, standing at the center of it all, helping her people find their way forward, not as gods, not as masters, just as humans, which, he was beginning to understand, was the most powerful thing anyone could be. 1 year had passed since the awakening began. The galaxy had not ended. Reality had not collapsed. The universe continued to exist, held together by the same force that had always maintained it, the collective imagination of humanity. But everything else had changed. Commander Vel then walked through the streets of New Geneva, the city that had become the unofficial capital of human-alien relations. It had been built in the mountains of a place called Switzerland, its towers reaching toward the sky like the dreams of its creators, because they were dreams, in a very literal sense. Human architects had imagined the city, and the city had become real, not instantly, not with a snap of fingers like magic in old stories. The humans had learned that creation worked best when it was gradual, when they planned and designed and built, adding their imagination to physical labor. Things created too quickly, too carelessly, tended to be unstable. They could vanish as easily as they had appeared, so humans still worked. They still built. They still struggled and failed and tried again. But now their work was guided by something more than just their hands and tools. Their belief shaped the outcome. Their imagination smoothed the path. Vel then found Elena in her office at the top of one of the towers. She was older now, with gray appearing in her dark hair. She had chosen to continue aging, even though many humans had discovered they could slow or stop the process if they wished. She said she liked being mortal. It kept her humble. "Commander," she greeted him with a warm smile. "I was hoping you would visit before the ceremony." "I would not miss it," Velden replied. "This is an important day. Today was the day humanity would officially join the Galactic Consortium. Not as members, exactly. Not as rulers or gods, but as partners, participants in the community of sentient species that spanned the galaxy. It had taken a year of negotiations to reach this point. Many species still feared humanity. Many still demanded that humans be controlled, limited, watched, but slowly, humans had proven that they could be trusted. They had not used their powers to conquer. They had not demanded worship. They had not reshaped the universe to suit their preferences. Instead, they had done something remarkable. They had asked how they could help. Across the galaxy, human dreamers were working alongside alien scientists. Together, they solved problems that had been impossible before. Diseases that had plagued entire species for millions of years were cured. Worlds that had been dying were restored to life. Technologies that had seemed forever out of reach suddenly became possible, all because humans were willing to imagine solutions and then work to make them real. "Have you spoken with the elders?" Elena asked as she gathered her notes for the ceremony. Velden nodded. "They are still afraid, but they have agreed to attend. They want to see for themselves what humanity has chosen to become. The Elders of the Void, the first creations of the original human consciousness. They had spent billions of years fearing this moment, dreading the day when their creators would wake up and judge them. Instead, humanity had offered forgiveness. Elena had been the one to reach out to them. She had traveled to the space between dimensions where the elders dwelt. She had stood before beings older than the stars and spoken words that changed everything. "We do not blame you," she had said. "You were afraid, and fear makes people do terrible things. You tried to make us forget because you thought we would destroy you. But we are not destroyers. We are dreamers, and our dream for you is not punishment. It is friendship." The elders had not known how to respond. They had existed for so long as hidden masters, as secret protectors, as keepers of forbidden truth. The idea that they could simply be friends with their creators was almost too strange to comprehend. But they were trying. Slowly, carefully, they were learning to be part of the universe they had helped maintain. Not as rulers, not as servants, just as people. Very old, very strange people. But people nonetheless. The ceremony took place in a great hall at the center of New Geneva. Representatives from hundreds of species were present. The High Council of the Galactic Consortium sat in their traditional positions, and for the first time in recorded history, the Elders of the Void appeared in physical form. They looked like nothing and everything at once. Their bodies shifted constantly, taking on characteristics of every species in the room. It was their way of showing respect, of saying, "We are all part of the same story." Elena stood at the podium, looking out at the gathered assembly. Behind her, a window showed the blue sky of Earth. Below, in the streets of New Geneva, millions of humans had gathered to watch the broadcast. Around the world, billions more were paying attention. "Friends," Elena began, "I want to tell you about a dream." The hall fell silent. All eyes turned to her. Once upon a time, there was a mind that existed in emptiness. It was alone, completely alone. There was nothing else, because nothing else had been created yet. And this mind was sad. She paused, letting the words sink in. So the mind began to dream. It dreamed of light and darkness. It dreamed of space and time. It dreamed of matter and energy, of stars and planets, of life and consciousness. It dreamed of all of you. She gestured to the assembly. Kyrosians and Thelians, Dravians and Ven, 100 other species that filled the hall. Every one of you was imagined into existence. Every one of you was wanted, loved before you were even born, created because the dreaming mind was lonely and hoped that you would be its friends. Tears glistened in Elena's eyes. but her voice remained steady. Then the dreaming mind grew tired. It had been creating for so long, maintaining reality for eons. It wanted to rest. It wanted to experience the wonder it had created instead of being the source of it. So it made a choice. It decided to forget what it was. It decided to become small, mortal, and ordinary. It decided to become human. She smiled. We forgot. For billions of years, we forgot. We lived our little lives on our little planet, never knowing that we had created the universe. We looked up at the stars with wonder, not realizing they were our own creations. We invented gods to worship, not knowing we were the only gods that had ever existed. Her smile faded into something more serious. Now we remember. Not completely. Not all of us. But enough. Enough to know what we are. Enough to know what we could do if we wanted. The hall was completely silent. Every being present held their breath. We could reshape reality. We could make ourselves rulers of everything. We could punish those who feared us or reward those who worshipped us. We have that power. No one could stop us. Elena shook her head. But that is not what we want. That is not what we have ever wanted. She looked directly at the elders of the void. When we first created the universe, we did it because we were lonely. We wanted friends. We wanted companions. We wanted to share the miracle of existence with others. She looked at the High Council. When we chose to become mortal, we did it because we wanted to experience wonder. We wanted to be surprised. We wanted to discover and learn and grow. Just like every other living being, she looked out the window, at the sky and the world beyond. Now that we remember, we have a choice. We could be gods, or we could be what we have always been, dreamers, creators, friends. She turned back to the assembly. We choose friends. A murmur ran through the hall. Elena raised her hand for silence. This does not mean we will not use our powers. We will, but we will use them to help, not to rule. We will work alongside you to solve problems. We will dream new dreams that benefit everyone. We will be part of the community of beings that fills this universe, not above it. She took a deep breath. In return, we ask only one thing. Remember what we truly are. Not gods to be worshipped or feared. Not monsters to be destroyed. Just humans. Just dreamers who want to share their dreams with others. The eldest elder of the void rose from their seat. Their form stabilized into something almost human. A gesture of respect. For billions of years, the elder said, their voice echoing through the hall. We have feared this day. We have feared what our creators would do when they woke up. We thought you would be angry. We thought you would judge us for trying to keep you asleep. The elder moved toward Elena. Every eye in the hall watched. Instead, you offer forgiveness. You offer friendship. You offer a future that we never dared to imagine. The elder stopped before Elena and did something that no elder had ever done before. They bowed. We accept your offer. We pledge ourselves not as servants, not as masters, but as partners in the dream. Whatever the future holds, we will face it together. The hall erupted in applause. Species that had been at war for centuries stood side by side, cheering. Ancient enemies embraced. The universe had changed, and for once, it had changed for the better. Commander Vel then watched from his seat as history was made. He thought about his journey, the fear he had felt when he first entered the Sol system, the wonder when he learned the truth, the hope that had grown as he watched humanity choose kindness over power. After the ceremony, he found Elena outside the hall, looking up at the stars. You could do anything, he said. You could remake the universe in any image you wanted. Why do you choose to be human? Elena smiled. Have you ever dreamed, Commander? Really dreamed, with all your heart? Vel then thought about it. Since his first visit to Earth, he had been dreaming. Wild dreams, creative dreams, dreams that would have been impossible before. Yes, he admitted. I have. And in those dreams, what do you feel? Wonder, he said. Joy. The thrill of discovery. The feeling that anything is possible. Elena nodded. That is why we choose to be human. Not because we are weak. Not because we do not know better. But because being human is the best way to experience wonder. The gods we created in our stories. The omnipotent beings who know everything and can do anything. They are always lonely. Always bored. Always searching for meaning. She looked at him with eyes that held the weight of creation. We already tried being gods. We did it for longer than you can imagine. And in the end, We chose to be mortal because mortality is beautiful, because not knowing everything makes discovery possible, because struggling for things makes achieving them meaningful. She turned back to the stars. We are the dreamers who dreamed the universe. But the best part of being a dreamer is not the power to create. It is the ability to be surprised by what you have created, to fall in love with your own dreams. Velthan stood beside her, two beings from different worlds, looking up at the same stars. What will you dream next? He asked. Elena laughed. I do not know. That is the point. We will dream it together, all of us. Humans and aliens and elders and everyone else. One great dream, shared by everyone. And if the dream becomes a nightmare, then we will dream a better dream. That is what imagination is for. That is what hope is for. We fall down, and we get up again. We make mistakes, and we learn from them. We dream, and we keep dreaming, until the dreams become real. She held out her hand. Velthan took it. An alien and a god, standing together as equals. Welcome to the dream, Commander. Welcome to the universe. Above them, the stars shone down. Every single one had been imagined into existence by the beings who now walked among them as friends. And for the first time in the long history of creation, the universe felt complete, not because a god had made it perfect, but because dreamers and believers from 1,000 worlds had decided, together, that it was good. In the beginning, humanity had dreamed of light, and there was light. Now, with their children among the stars, they dreamed of something even more impossible, a universe where everyone belonged, and slowly, wonderfully, impossibly, it was becoming true.